Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
So it's been about 10 years since I was last here. Do people still talk about paranormal experiences, or is it all just magic and cryptids now? Because I need to vent. Pick related. By the way, I moved to Japan to teach English this last summer, the northern island, way out in the boonies. I was blown away to find out that the temporary teacher housing was a 4-room, 2-story house. I asked my supervisor why such a big house, especially when I learned that regular teacher housing are basically a series of duplex buildings next to the school. He just kind of laughed uncomfortably and said, "Don't worry. That comes in later." So it's been months since I moved in now, and nothing crazy has happened. Life out here is pretty boring, lonely. There is exactly one person under age 30 and over age 18 here, and it's me. This is also important, because no one has been on the second floor of my house. Only a few workers on the first floor when my water heater needed replacing. Nothing crazy has happened, but in retrospect, there have been a few things worth mentioning. The house is old and creaky and whatnot, a bit creepy overall, but I've never been easily creeped out. That said, for some reason the second floor always puts me on edge. Especially the hallway. I can't walk down that hallway without feeling a really intense urge to check behind me. I knew it was strange that I felt this way, but I chalked it up to moving to a new country by myself. It never went away, though. Another thing is really off and on, only 3 times since summer, and I'm now wondering how to even explain it. I'll be wandering through the house doing something or other, and I'll hear a really loud sound, just a flash of it. It's always surprising enough to stop me in my tracks, but the weird part is that I can never actually remember what I heard. I can't put words to the sound in any way, because I can't think of it clearly. It's a bit unnerving, but I just assume it was something weird outside, which is still possible, I guess. So here's the last bit that kind of set me off. Winter in northern Japan is actually a hell of a lot colder than you'd think, and Japanese houses built before 1980 were literally built without insulation, because development companies were just building southern-style buildings, a style that doesn't have to worry about the cold. I found out the hard way that my bedroom, and the entire second floor, will almost always be something like 5 or 6 degrees Celsius when I go to bed, because another Japanese thing is, what is central heating? I bought a space heater for my bedroom, as well as a humidifier, and I've gotten into the habit of running upstairs an hour before bed to turn them both on so I can at least start my night warm and comfortable. By the time I get up there, the entire upstairs is warmer, and the windows fog up from the heat, humidity. You might have guessed what my picture means by now. Last week I went upstairs to go to sleep, and genuinely almost pissed myself. That handprint in the condensation was not there until that day. I compared it to my own hand, and the handprint is much smaller. I was so uncomfortable. I took this picture to send to my friends and joke about a ghost in my house, just to alleviate my own unease. I'm very aware that handprints that were already there could appear when the window fogs up, and it's possible that I missed it like 3 weeks in a row? But it's almost impossible, because that window is right at the top of the stairs, and the first thing I see when I get near the top. This is where I decided I finally needed to get this off my chest. I ran into my neighbor when I was shoveling snow the other day, and asked her if she knew anything about the previous residents. I knew that I was the first foreign teacher to live here, but that's all I knew. My neighbor is super chill, and told me jokingly about how no one had lived in this house since she moved to the neighborhood 7 years ago, and that it's basically understood to be haunted. I pressed her for more info on that, since it was basically the confirmation of my unfounded fears, but she had nothing. She said not to worry about it. It's just superstitious old people, which is what I would have assumed too. This also explains how cheap the house would have been for the school district to buy, and the odd reaction of my supervisor when I asked about it. So here I am. I'm not expecting help. I just really needed to say it. I don't have anyone else I could talk to about this. I am uncomfortable.
First job as a teacher at a high school in a rural town of about 1,000. School hasn't been updated since the building was constructed in the late 40s. Town has a history of mountain men folklore and blue-collar lifestyle. Being a first-year teacher, swamped with work. Staying late at school to grade and prep. About 10 p.m. Sitting in the school library by myself with all the lights off except for a few to work by. Feel creeped out by the scenario but keep it up. Print some copies. Head out into the hall to get to the printer, hit the lights in sequence to light my way. Grab papers. Plan out my escape to hit lights behind me so I'm never standing alone in darkness in this big empty school. I realized I left my bag downstairs in the science lab. Done for the night, but I need that bag. Take my chances and run to the end of the hall in complete darkness, hit lights to the stairwell and bound downstairs. Get into the lab, grab my bag. Shut door behind me. Hear a help, that sounds like it's coming from inside the room. Do a double take and look through the window into the lab. See a small light was left illuminating exactly one desk in the room. Don't remember hitting a switch for that side of the room. Nope. MP4. Rush up the stairs, flip switches off and fly out of the front door of the school. Go to bed shaking. Come in the next day to realize I left the front doors to the school completely unlocked. I was so scared. Nobody says anything to me. Go about my day, don't say a word. Stop into the science lab to see what switch went to that light. Not a single one turns on, only that one light. The teacher in the room tells me she found a bunch of items on the floor she remembered putting on her desk before she left, and asks if I know anything. Shake my head no and leave. Never stay late to work at school ever again. Toward the end of the year, I shit you not, the superintendent told me that there was a fire in the school science lab 60 years prior where a young student was killed. Teacher from earlier back again. I do have another school, haunted work story if you guys are interested, gonna post anyway. Still teaching at a small school in a rural town. December, it's snowing like crazy and nighttime. Terrible service in my apartment, so I take a walk across the street to the school, which happens to be on top of a hill looking down the valley and gets exceptional service. Standing in the parking lot freezing my ass off and chatting with GF. Snow falling like crystals, it's really pretty. Not wanting to be cold, but not wanting to go into school at night because I was afraid of what I experienced last time. Tuck into the corner of the building outside and below the window. Phone call is getting static, tell GF I'm getting off the line. Hang up and at about this time swear I still hear static. Whole location is dead silent except for this sound. Don't want to do it, but step out anyway to peek inside the window of school. See nothing. Phew. Start walking back home, halfway across the lot when I hear static again. Turn back to look at school. Two small lights turned on, same rooms that were haunted last time. No cars in the lot. I was near the only entrance to school. Whoever turned them on had to be in the school, in the dark, for the past hour or so. Lights flicker off and on, like they're signaling me. Nope. Rush back home. This is the second to last time I ever go back at night. Last, at school at night, story. GF at the time is visiting apartment. Cold and snowy, still December. Nuzzle up close for warmth and we start getting frisky. GF suggests we go into the school at night to have sex. Always wanted to have sex in a classroom, but know how ridiculously afraid I am of that school at night. Can't be a wuss in front of my GF, though, so I agree to let her in. GF is really cocky once we get inside, she doesn't know my stories. Get her into my classroom and within minutes we're fooling around. Only light is the moonlight coming in through classroom windows. Sexy, I know. Finish and clean up. On our way out the door I'm surprised nothing happened. Ask your GF if she wants something from the teacher's room fridge. We store drinks and treats there. She responds, but doesn't follow me. Walk out of the lounge and can't find her. Search everywhere upstairs, she's nowhere to be found. Worried, I shout and hear no response. Go downstairs, nothing. Freaking out now I rush outside and run around the building. GF is huddled in the bushes as far from school as possible, shaking. What's wrong? I was scared about you. Tells me she wandered the hallway after I left the room to see rest of school. She got to the middle of the hallway and stopped when she saw the silhouette of a person rushing through the door and downstairs. She bolted when the door opened on its own and heard a slam downstairs. We never talk about school or my job again. Actually, one more, only somewhat related. Last 2 months at the teaching job. Working summer program teaching environmental summer camp. Town is in an uproar because a local girl went missing. Police all over town asking questions, parents and kids are on edge. Having the campers play in a stream looking for crayfish and other things. The water was extremely cold that day. One of the kids finds a section of brick red clay and starts playing in it. Sediment is normally a dark black color, but don't think anything of it. I show kids the clay and find it is covering this whole section of the stream, and we have a good time learning about clay. Take my older students to just under the town bridge and go fishing. Kids keep hearing splashing and what sounds like yelping from the water. Just the current and echoes of traffic above our heads, I tell them. Go back to the apartment that night and have nightmares, trouble sleeping. Keep hearing people outside my apartment, mostly a man arguing with a young girl. It's so late, I don't even bother as it just sounds like she's a tween that got in trouble. Next day I am back at the stream with my campers when one of the fathers rushes down and grabs his 2 kids, says they're leaving immediately. My aide suggests that maybe we should leave. Get back to school and find police are overloading the place. They found the body of the missing girl under the bridge in the water. She had been there for at least a week, body bloated and near frozen. Organs had burst from her body and scattered downstream. MFWI was having students play in the same water right near where she died. MFWI heard the arguing outside and had nightmares after doing this. My face when the red clay shook me the fuck up.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
8th grade, English class. English teacher is this really weird guy, really charismatic but soft-spoken and likes to get offended really easily at kids making fun of him, and he talks really candidly about morbid subjects. An example, I had moved to this new school at the beginning of 8th grade, and as well as being an English teacher he was vice principal, so he was in charge of showing kids around and interviewing them. In the first 20 minutes he goes on a massive tangent when we talk about public versus private school. He was principal of a private school, to the point where he starts talking about the massive self-end rate in places like Denmark due to minimum sunlight. Both me and my mom immediately realize he's fucking weird. Anyway, back to the class. Around April, have had an entire year with him. For the most time he's normal, with a few exceptions, like the fact that he would inject some hardcore Christianity in our lessons on philosophy. One day he gave us the old philosophical puzzle of whether to save yourself or everyone else in a boat if it were you and 5 other strangers. Literally says, since I know for sure that I'm saved, and the strangers might not be, I am completely alright with letting the rest of the party die. It was at this point that everyone in the class was freaked out. Still, what could you do? It was a Christian school and it may have been weird, but what did we pay for? We had this little conversation outside in the preschool playground. That was the only reason for us to go outside to this little playground, to have him establish to us that he would let everyone else die because of his beliefs. On the way up, he stops this kid Marcus from exiting the playground. With all of the students giggling, he starts pushing Marcus's chest down, making him lose balance and slide off the kid's apparatus he was on. Continued to have his finger on the kid's chest as he goes to the ground and pins him there. He does this shit many times. Marcus. Marcus is a class favorite of his. Distinctly remember getting pissed that his terrible essays were getting higher grades than mine, even though I was a little try-hard. A few weeks before the fateful day, we were reading Lord of the Flies. Basically a story about a bunch of kids stranded on an island, story about how societies are formed, etc. No joke, he literally gets up at the end of class and states to all of us,
"In the spirit of the Lord of the Flies, we are having a little excursion for a few days in Sipsey."
Sipsey is the largest and most remote wilderness area in Alabama and Mississippi.
"Oh yeah, and it's strongly suggested that the boys come. Jessica, you can come if you want, but you don't have to."
Jessica was the only girl in our class. Safe assured I wasn't going to go on that motherfucking buttfuck safari. Sure enough though, people started signing up. A few days after loudly exclaiming to my friends that I wasn't going anywhere with that freakish English teacher, I started to feel bad and left. Think of telling my mother and asking if I can go. I ask her, and she says sure, but she would have to get it confirmed with the school. Both me and my mother miraculously forgot, and when the deadline for signing up was approaching, I just decided to forego it and take a test instead with a few days break. This is the last day we do anything constructive in the class. Deadline coming closer. Heard through the grapevine that the majority of the kids' parents found out about the trip and removed them from attending, mostly out of convenience issues. We were supposed to have finished the book by the time the trip was to happen. Spend the next week just reading and taking notes in class. One day, teacher shows up to class in a sweatshirt, looking hungover. Literally came in every day wearing a suit. Something is wrong here.
"Today we're going to make a little change and not read Lord of the Flies. Today I'm going to teach you about the Mobius Strip."
August Mobius was a German mathematician and philosopher whose arguably greatest achievement was the study of the strip that shares his name. Orders all of us to create a paper strip and then attach both ends to one another, creating a ring.
His strip is also useful in philosophy. Hold the strip in front of your nose.
We comply, laughing nervously.
The outside of the ring is the side of you that you show to people every day. It is still a part of you, and is true to how you really are, but it is segregated from the majority of your thoughts because of the way society deems certain things acceptable or not. You see the inside of that ring? Only you can see that surface. No one else in this room can see it. That represents your deepest inner thoughts, feelings, and desires. This is just as real as the outside of the ring, but it represents the parts of you that make you absolute, and also unacceptable to society. I need to tell you that every single person in this room, and every single person on the planet has things about them in this strip that they will never tell anyone about. Not to their deepest lover, or to their closest family member. They will die with it. That is what you should remember when you deal with anyone, no matter how easygoing, or simple, or nice they appear. They all have it. Have a nice day.
Let us out a solid half an hour early. We look at each other weirdly but just assume it's him being him. 2 days later, he gets raided by police. Had assaulted hundreds of boys in a 10-year span of being a teacher. Started in summer camps, where he would groom them with food and force them to watch porn movies with him. would be in charge of overnight lock-in as a part of certain school summer camps where he would have dozens of boys by himself in basketball gyms for an entire night. Would play games with them in which he would strip them all naked and chase them around the building, trying to blank them. He would take boys to and from sports practice and force them to perform blank on them. Every time there was a complaint against them, he would simply move schools. We all get called in a few days after the incident by the principal, who through sobs tells us what had happened. Tells us also that the trip he planned wasn't ever in the works when it came to the school. Motherfucker was about to take all the kids in our class on a private trip with him under the guise of it being a school-sponsored trip. We also had diaries that we would keep in which we would have correspondence with the teacher on literally any topic. School didn't know about that either. I just talked about dumb shit with him, didn't seem to be attracted to me. Darkness to Light also came and talked with us. Did anyone see anything suspicious when they were being taught by Mr. Sanders? Thought about it. I did have one story. A few months earlier, he noticed I had a messy backpack, and thought it was such a problem that he ordered that I have him help me with it after school. After school, he leads me into his office. It is a meticulously clean office with a nice view of the courtyard, and jar after jar of sweets.
Want anything? Tea?
No. I'm alright. Okay then. I'll be back in a second. Leaves. Minutes pass. Final school bell rings. Janitors leave. Still not there. Couldn't look out of the window to the outside hallway. Ended up waiting 30 minutes. He finally comes in, rustles some paper inside my backpack, and orders me out of the room. Darkness to Light people listen to it and investigate. The motherfucker had a one-way mirror installed in his room. Surprise, surprise, the school didn't know about that either. They told me and my mother about this. We left the next year to go to a nice-ass boarding school out of state because I tried my ass off and was a star baseball player. The school lost a shit ton of students I came to find, and as a result went from an up-and-coming school in my town to basically a preschool attached to a church. His wife had to skip town as well as his children. So yeah, that's the creepiest thing I've ever gone through.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.